Okay, I'm going to be showcasing one of the kind of cooler features of our game. It's finally kind of set up to the point where we can kind of show this off. So I've set up a preloaded game just to be able to go into it really quick. But basically, the real core of our game is the spell crafting system, not just kind of the combat. So I've shown the altar before. You can kind of upgrade your guys into other guys. But those are now disabled until you've completed a puzzle. So basically, we'll come into the puzzle and there's multiple ways of solving them. So one of the big questions was just, so we have this spellcrafting system where you can craft so many different types of spells, which is awesome, but if your only goal is, kill X people, then relatively quickly you'll find the best tools for that job, and that's essentially the end of the experimentation. So we really want to make sure that we're throwing the player constant reasons to experiment. So obviously this is just really quickly mocked up. It's just the first example of what we might actually do for a puzzle. So for example, if we apply enough temperature to this, it'll actually catch on fire, and that's kind of its puzzle requirement. So to complete the puzzle at the moment we've got, because we have blink on no cooldown, there's another barrel up there basically, which we also need to set on fire, which, this has an explosion, but since it doesn't have line of sight, it can't actually set that on fire. So I have a debug spell set up, so that, because you can make any spell that I'm about to make kind of the debug way within the system, combining various components, masking out certain effects and things like that, but just to kind of boycott all the experimentation that would require, which is a fun part of the game, just not what I'm trying to quickly showcase at all. So I'm just going to hit plus, and it has no icon because it's just debug. But basically, so now I've got a fireball which lobs. It's just invisible walls. So basically, it lobs, because I've set it up to have physics, and it explodes with temperature, and so since I lobbed it up there and it exploded, that's actually set that on fire, and so I have completed the dungeon. But the cool thing about this, obviously a really simple puzzle there, but you can solve that puzzle in so many different ways. So I'll just try and show a couple of different ways. This is ultimately what a spell actually is, all the different things that make it up. So I'll take the explosion off, for instance. Might break the visuals. I don't know if we have visuals for the destructible meteors. But basically, since this is a template cast and a solid, unless I've forgotten something, this should be a meteor now. So I'm pretty sure it still does temperature on impact. So if we come over to this dungeon, you need to have at least one spell to enter the world. That's why I've quickly made that up. So as per usual, we'll go and throw this on there. And then to set this one on fire, now just because I placed it, I kind of know that that's in the center of that. So if we can actually, I'm going to have to aim it well. So these are actually the destructible meteors, which are raining down. Like I said, unfortunately no visuals on that yet. Oh, yeah, I hit it. So it was kind of a bit guessy there. That's not the smoothest way to solve that puzzle. But since it comes from the sky, you can actually hit that where you weren't able to with a normal fireball. So a meteor's kind of capable of solving that puzzle. You've also got some kind of really different ways. So if I, let's have a look. If we just make this like projectile, static, not solid, and the on-target effects being a knock-up of, let's say like 500, that's actually huge, 400,000 maybe? And the speed doesn't matter because it should be stationary. So if I have this spell, basically it should make a field which is capable of throwing me up. So the on-target effect of this field was knockback in the z-axis, which takes you directly up. So I haven't actually tested this one, but fingers crossed it does what I'm expecting. And so we light that on fire as per usual with the debug spell, and I'm just going to dump this here, for instance. So it looks like a fireball because the element is fire, but there we are. So this field, its actual effect is an upward draft, so that'll actually throw me up when I get into it, and I should be able to ride that up onto the platform and then set it on fire with my normal spell, which works fine. Just, I guess, going through a couple of other possible effects. We'll plug the temperature back in to the explosion. Actually, no, we don't need any on-target effects for this. What we want is an explosion effect, which is a nice big knockback. And again, so I'm just typing in all these values, but theoretically, all of these spells are makeable within our system. You just have to mix and match the right elements, which is kind of the really cool part about it. So this is solid, knockback, and has explosion effects, so and that's going to need to move. And hopefully that works. Again, untested here, but so ideally this would be a quest. So like I said, kind of like the sacrificial altar here, we can't buy better skeletons until we've completed this dungeon. So then, essentially get a quest to come and complete this dungeon, and then, so that's in the game what's giving you the motivation to craft different types of spells. Half of these spells would be borderline useless in combat, but combat's not the only puzzle you need to solve. So, because this has knockback on explosion, I'm just going to essentially rocket jump. So, yep, use that to knock myself well and truly upwards, and I managed to blast myself onto the platform, which is close enough to set that on fire. And then also with those torches, just as kind of a last example of how you might solve it, I've got them, you can set whether or not you want them to, let's set that on there just so it looks a little nicer. Want them to be physics, so if we, that's already projectile, so not solid, projectile, let's just change it up, let's make it a box, moderately stable, fine, let's make this a normal speed. Doesn't really need to explode, but we need kind of a big, so X knockback is directly away from the spell, whereas Z knockback is directly up, so you've got a knock up and knock out, knock back, and then you've also got putting a negative on that, so a negative X value will suck the player towards the spell, so you can kind of get cool fields that will suck everyone inside in. So I think this should work. So, yeah, the idea is to have full dungeons that the player will actually run through, just kind of littered with these cool kinds of puzzles that kind of, as I've showcased here, there's 101 ways to solve. The system's really robust in terms of all the different types of spells you can make, and so it's kind of up to you to figure out how you want to solve the puzzle. So again, hitting plus, and this time basically it's in the middle of that platform. What I'm trying to do is knock it off the platform. So that's a air wall. Might have missed it. Or the knockback value might not be high enough. I'm not sure. Ah, devastated. All the others work. Let me just come up here. So I'm missing that entirely. On-target effects. Values should be high enough. Going pretty fast. Let's slow it down a little bit, give it a bit more chance to actually knock that. Don't break on me. But yeah, so the goal with this last one was basically just as a complete alternative to trying to launch you up there or trying to call something down on it, actually to knock it off the platform so that you can then just set it on fire at your leisure on the ground. Come on. There we are. So that's knocked it off there. It just, the speed and the wall's not very thick, so it didn't actually spend very long in the field. So that knockback's actually managed to knock that down. And now I can just really nicely set that one on fire, wait for the cooldown. But shouldn't have any qualms setting this on fire, which should finish up the dungeon. Boom. So victory screen, return back to the map, and the map now registers that we've completed that dungeon, which was a requirement here, and now we are able to spend our grunts to get better upgrades. So just kind of I guess one of the earlier showcases there of the more complex nature of our system. It's not just make a bigger fireball to toast more guys. There's a lot of reasons to craft a lot of different kinds of spells. And yeah, that's one of the really exciting parts of it. That was the quickest puzzle and dungeon that I could throw together at all. So we should be able to make, hundreds of those different puzzles that you can each solve. Those 5 ways that I solved that one was just the first things that came to my mind. There's probably more ways to solve even that still. But yeah, so that's kind of a good rundown of how those puzzles go. And that's about it.